Introducing the new Volvo XC90. With 7-seat versatility, Google built-in, and advanced safety features for all your precious cargo. The new Volvo XC90, designed for life. Visit volvocars.com/US to learn more.
Now more than ever, Lowe's knows you don't just want a low price, you want the lowest price. And with our lowest price guarantee, you can count on us for competitive prices on all your home improvement projects. If you find a qualifying lower price somewhere else on the same item, we'll match it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Price match applies the same item, current price at qualifying retailers. Exclusions and terms apply. Learn how we'll match price at lowes.com/lowest price guarantee.
This episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino Ciao, a new kind of flavor sparkling water. The kind made with real fruit juice, a pinch of Sicilian salt, and the sparkle of the Italian sun. With no added sugar and just 10 or less calories per can, enjoy. With love, from Italy. By San Pellegrino Ciao now.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. See, the energy of that hello from me, Kieran, sometimes your positive vibes just rub off in the morning. Just 2 minutes of saying hello to you and sharing the news of the world, not the news of the world, you know, I mean, just the gossip and the tilt-tattle, and I go from being barely awake to, things are okay, isn't it? Kieran's got a big smile on his face.
It's a bit cloudier than yesterday. I thought that would perk you up a bit.
Well, it would do, except that people keep telling me this is only for a day and it's going to be hotter than ever tomorrow. So, also, I've made a rod for my own back because people know I hate the heat so much. They keep reminding me how hot it is. It's just literally, it's one of my favourite Frank Skinner jokes. It was so hot yesterday, my gran took her hat off. Yeah. It's Newsday, Kieran. There's still no white smoke or red and blue smoke from UEFA, although the mood music now seems to be that UEFA are locked into having to make a decision based on what the world was like on the 1st of March. But there are clubs, Kieran, with far worse problems than Crystal Palace potentially not being in Europe. And one of those, I'm afraid, is Sheffield Wednesday. And the pebbles are really, really starting to roll down the mountain now there, Kieran, aren't they?
They are. It's a very challenging position, which we see in respect of Wednesday. We're doing this at the start of July. By all accounts, a lot of people weren't paid on time at the end of June. That involves both playing staff and non-playing staff. I've taken a look at the EFL handbook, and it says that if there is a serious or persistent failure to pay wages, then the club potentially is in breach of contract. And we have seen reported from various high-profile journalists, journalists that we respect, that players are effectively handing in their notice or working about how they can hand in their notice. I have been in contact with our sources at the club because there was a story circulating yesterday that Barry Bannon had said something along the lines of, "You don't pay me until all of the support staff have been paid."
Yeah,
and which was if so was a very magnanimous gesture. I did speak, however, to the Price of Football's secret owl in the dressing room, who said, "Barry Bannon is a Scotsman. If you think a Scotsman is going to give up receiving money, think again." So somewhere along the lines, there are mixed messages coming up. But even so, we're not trying to make light of what is a very serious issue. Dejon Chansiri is apparently saying, "I'm spending every minute of every day trying to sort out the financial issues." Well, if so, he's failing in that particular task. This is the third time in 4 months that wages have been delayed. There are separate issues with regards to unpaid amounts to HMRC. HMRC will not try to be awkward for the sake of being awkward, but at the same time, it has responsibilities towards the taxpayer. HMRC is also very aware that when it, I wouldn't say it was generous towards Derby County under Mel Morris. It ended up with a £28 million unpaid tax bill. And despite the change in legislation, which increases the position of HMRC, it effectively had to take the same haircut as unsecured creditors, and taxpayers lost £21 million. The Exchequer lost £21 million as a result of that. Therefore, my sources within HMRC say we've got to be seen to be more proactive. So that's not good news, and this is a classic unintended consequences of Mel Morris's decision that Derby has potential implications for Sheffield Wednesday. But I don't anticipate a winding up order coming in just yet. We will have to wait and see. I believe Danny Cadamarati's son is being sold by Sheffield Wednesday to Manchester City for around about £1.5 million. So people are saying, well, that will go to help. And it looks as, based on my calculations, the monthly wage bill at Sheffield Wednesday is probably in the region of £1.5 million. But I suspect that if that transaction does go through, then those monies are already ring-fenced for other issues than paying the wages. It's grossly unfair on those people who work at Hillsborough, who are accepting a lower than market rate salary because the vast majority of them are Wednesday fans, and therefore they're willing to. It's their contribution, and I think they've been taken advantage of by Chansiri. He's consistently made errors. He's consistently ignored the opportunity to engage with trying to find a solution to this because he's very stubborn. Certainly, when we did the live show at Rotherham, Wednesday fans were very concerned there. And in terms of what are the potential consequences or the potential options going forwards for Wednesday, for me, they are fourfold. First of all, Chansiri does find the Willy Wonka golden ticket and somehow gets some money from one of his mates. I think he's failed to do that to date. So I'm not particularly confident in that. Secondly, he agrees to a sale of the club at a price which probably more reflects its market worth as opposed to the prices that he has been asking for. And I think he's kept coming down in terms of his demands. Again, talking to people who know people who know people, and all of this is it's an element of conjecture as always. We must say this is not fact. We're just passing on sort of the noises that we are hearing. It could be that he's lost a lot of money at Sheffield Wednesday. The thing is, it's dead money. It's X money. You trying to recoup that, but does he owe money to other parties? There is a loan from a company called New Avenue Projects, which is around about 7 million. And that loan is due to be repaid at the end of September, but that loan has rolled off, so that would have to be repaid. Although that loan is from Sheffield 3 Limited as opposed to Sheffield Wednesday Football Club, so it all starts to get complicated because he's fractured the group. So we've got continue, sell. Option number 3 is put the club into administration. But if you put the club into administration, who's going to pay for the administration during the course of those actions? That will have to be taken into account, and that involves an immediate points deduction. It involves Chansiri losing control, and he likes control. That's quite clear, but it has to be considered that because otherwise he could be accused of wrongful or fraudulent trading if the club's not generating enough money to carry on trading. The fourth option, and the only reason I'm mentioning this was that I did an hour-long show with Radio Sheffield a couple of nights ago, and Wednesday fans were concerned, could the club go into liquidation? Could, but it's ridiculous remote. I don't see that as a logical step, because there's nothing to sell from a liquidator's point of view. So therefore the club is worth far more as a going concern, and far more if it's sold by Chancery than that as an option. So I personally would rule that one out. But you are duty bound to say that's the situation. So you feel for the players. Danny Roll, the manager who did a pretty damn good job last year. I think he's considering his options. He certainly appears to be in demand, because Wednesday had they had one of the bottom three wage budgets last season, and they did pretty well as far as the table was concerned. So they have some good players, but those players, their responsibilities towards their families, and I think fans understand that. So Chancery needs to grow up.
A couple of things we should point out, Kieran. We're recording this. It's currently 9:47 on the morning of Wednesday, the 2nd of July. So this will be going out, except for club members who will be able to get it almost immediately. But most of you people will be listening to this on Thursday, and this is a volatile situation, so things may have changed in the last 24 hours. Secondly, I'm honour bound to say, Kieran, if only because we have a lot of listeners in Scotland, that contrary to popular myth, Scottish people are just as generous with their time and money as the rest of us, and also, in my experience, quicker to tweet. So,
that did come from...
Yes, of course, Sheffield, somebody in the dressing room.
That came from a Yorkshireman.
Yeah, okay. Chancery's statement yesterday or the day before, I believe, much more emollient and apologetic than the statements he's made in the past, accepting full responsibility for the current plight at Sheffield Wednesday and the wages thing. Also suggesting that he's trying every possible avenue to sell the club, but he's not being offered reasonable prices. People know we're in trouble, he's saying, so they're trying to basically take the mickey. And thirdly, and I almost hate to mention this man's name, but you mentioned responsible journalist Ed Malyon this morning. He's a very good journalist with Palace connections, talking about John Textor initially trying to buy Palace but didn't have the money to buy Palace, so bought part of Palace, then spent his time moaning about buying part of Palace. So now sold that part of Palace. He's potentially jeopardised Palace's chance of getting into Europe. He potentially jeopardised the deal at Everton going through with his Walter Mitty fantasy attempted to take over there. He's brought Lyon to its knees. And as Ed Malyon say, you'd imagine John Textor would probably want to take a step backwards, but no, it seems that John Textor is front and foremost in trying to add Sheffield Wednesday to his already beleaguered multi-club system. It's one of those things. It's an option. Sometimes it's the least worst option, but it's an option that I would not be wanting to take if I was a Sheffield Wednesday fan. On the other hand, if he's the only serious buyer and that's the only way they can save the club, then what can you do?
Yeah, it is between the devil and deep blue sea. And I would be upset if I was a Wednesday fan. I mean, John Textor is brash. He's very successful. So, who am I to criticise a billionaire? But if you've got nothing good to say nothing has always been a mantra. And I failed on that on many an occasion. But I'm not dealing with the aspirations and hopes of thousands and thousands of owls. And therefore, I think he likes the sound of John Textor. And as we often say, success has 100 fathers, and failure is an orphan. Whilst we're talking about Sheffield Wednesday, he's still trying to take credit for things that have happened at Palace when he should have just shut the F up.
Yep. He should have. Let's not go down that that route. It's already bad enough that I'm working at 10 to 10 in the morning, Kieran, without having to talk about that. It's quite clear, Kieran, that for whatever reason at the moment, Dejan Chansiri simply hasn't got the money to run the club on a daily basis. Selling one player for 1.5 million is the ultimate sticking plaster that might get him through another month. So what's your instinct about how this will play out? I mean, they're a massive club, Kieran. Somebody's going to want to buy Sheffield Wednesday. Surely that's the most likely outcome of this, isn't it?
I can assure you there are lots of people that want to buy Sheffield Wednesday Football Club because there are so many positives to be associated with it. The issue is always, it comes down to price. Dejan Chansiri is hanging out for too much. He's run the club on a loss-making basis from day one. He nearly got to the Premier League, and the Wednesday fans, they will acknowledge that as well. They're a very certainly. I pop on to Owl's Talk to sort of try to read the room as much as I can, and there's gallows humour as you would expect. They're quite a self-effacing bunch, but if you're going to run a club as a trophy asset, you've got to have the resources to do so, and those resources have dried up. Now we don't know the circumstances. We've all been on the WhatsApp groups and we've exchanged messages as to our conspiracy theories about why Dejan Chansiri isn't in a position to put the same amount of money that he could have done 18 months ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it happens to be. But things have changed, and Hillsborough is looking tatty. They've got no manager realistically. They've got only half a squad. They've got a transfer embargo of sorts in the sense that they can't pay fees for players and so on. It's not an appetising prospect. And if Dejan Chansiri's got any sense, he will realise that if he thinks he's not going to get a good price for Sheffield Wednesday at the start of a championship season, if he carries on and the club does limp through, and literally limp through from payday to payday with no investment in the playing squad, he's going to be trying to sell in 6 months' time a club which potentially is looking on the brink of relegation to League One. And I can assure you that League One prices are substantially lower than those of the Championship. So you would hope that he sees common sense. But I was talking to one of our secret lawyers the other day, and he came up with a very pithy comment, but was actually, on reflection, was a very smart one. He says, we assume that common sense is the same as being in common supply, but in the world of football, it's not. And is there anybody at Sheffield Wednesday at a senior level to give counsel to Dejan Chansiri? Or is he actually trying to do things by himself? And he seems to have alienated a lot of people. I think, sadly, that is the case. There's nobody to give him guidance to say, look, Dejan, this is a realistic offer. Yes, you might be able to squeeze a bit more, but don't dismiss things out of hand. And if the offers that we've heard about, which I think were around about 40 million, it's not at the top end of the range, but it's still in the range, I can assure you, as in terms of the numbers that people have calculated and that I've seen.
Two very quick things to anchor. Remind me first who owns Hillsborough?
Hillsborough is owned by a company called Sheffield 3 Limited.
Right,
I think
okay.
it's Sheffield 3. I think it's Sheffield 3 or Sheffield 2. And he set up a complicated structure, and even then he managed to mess that up, and then he got the dates wrong, and Wednesday ended up having a points deduction. So would that be sold along with the stadium, so along with the football club? Almost certainly. He currently charges £2.575 million a year rent to the football club from this company, Sheffield 3. My concern is if the club goes into administration and Sheffield 3 doesn't, that would result in Chansiri becoming kingmaker in a similar and I don't Derby fans, so I'm not having a go at you on an individual basis, but Mel Morris, when he put Derby County into administration, he kept the stadium company, which meant that I'm aware of other bidders who put in decent offers, but he was in a position to say, "No, I don't like you, mate. I'm going to charge you this much rent, or I'm going to charge you a fortune for the stadium." So it does allow the owner a degree of influence, which I'm never comfortable with, and it makes the job of the administrators that much harder.
And finally, the EFL have slapped that transfer embargo on Wednesday. What's their next possible sanction or move in this situation?
Well, they have also charged Chansiri, and again, sort of looking at what we've seen on the EFL website, and again, I've been contacted by Wednesday fans to say, is the EFL doing enough? None of us know the day-to-day activities, but we've got good lines of communication with the EFL, and the desire there. They're not going to. We're going to give him a bit more rope. We're going to allow him some more leeway. I can assure you that the desire is to enforce the rule book as best they can, but they know their rule book better than anybody else. So he is up on a charge effectively for failure to comply with his commitment to provide sufficient funding to run the club. But these things drag on and on because lawyers get involved, and it becomes very icky and messy.
If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/promo. Go to shopify.com/promo.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
It's now 9:57 on Wednesday morning, Kieran. So Tuesday afternoon, 4:00 seemed to be the deadline for Morecambe and administration. So what happened there?
Right. On Monday, the board of directors of Morecambe Football Club, and for people who are unfamiliar with the situation, let me sort of try to give it some sort of framework. Morecambe Football Club is effectively owned by a company called the Bond Group. The Bond Group is owned by a guy called Jason Whittingham. Jason Whittingham used to have a partner who I think is no longer there, who has a colourful history. I'll just say unusual sales of Aston Martins. Look it up yourself, and you'll find a bit more there. Jason Whittingham and his partner also ran Worcester Warriors Rugby Union Club, which was liquidated due to inability to pay its debts as they fell due. And there is an independent board of directors. They are volunteers. They love the town of Morecambe, and they are the people that run the club on a day-to-day basis. And to give them a huge amount of credit, because you don't often see a board standing up to an owner. They have consistently criticised the owner. There has been an agreement with Punjab Warriors to buy Morecambe Football Club. we were celebrating that deal a few weeks ago, as I think Morecambe fans were, I think lots of other fans of other clubs go, well, there for the grace of God go I. So there's no ill will towards Morecambe FC at all. And then on Monday morning, we started to hear things. But Punjab Warriors saying, well, the deal's not over the line. And the board of directors put out, I think it was 2 or 3 releases during the day. I think the first one was along the lines of Jason Whittingham has effectively weaseled on the deal. It was agreed, and now he's wanting more time. He's delaying. He's prevaricating. As somebody who, and this has to be said, this was many, many years ago, worked in the world of insolvency, I can assure you I've got experience of being on the sales side of an insolvency, of a company which wants administration. You think you've done a deal with somebody, you come to sign off, and then they raise a point, and then they raise another point, and then you start to get that feeling that actually they're not particularly serious. I've had too much experience of tyre kickers, delusional fantasists, lunatics, and so on, which is part of the reason I got out of the business. So what we have is an owner, Punjab Warriors. I think they put in somewhere close to £5 million, if these stories are correct. So they've funded the club, they've allowed the wages and HMRC and other people to be paid. But they say, look, we're not willing to do this anymore, because we're losing faith in Jason Whittingham. So the board of directors at Morecambe FC said, right, we've given Jason Whittingham a 4 p.m. deadline, trying to bring him screaming and shouting to the table to force through the deal. It got to 4 o'clock, and then there was another press release to say, we're giving him another couple of hours. Now, it could be that he's lawyered up, and I think he is a lawyer. So therefore, he could be, he could be really awkward about this. 6 o'clock came. I was on Radio Lancashire, talking about this at 5 to 6, and sort of trying to go through the options. And then it came through sort of an hour or two later that the board of Morecambe have said, right, we're giving him one last chance. And people, critics are saying, well, hold on, you've already extended the deadline. Sometimes you have to do it for legal reasons. Yeah. They're not doing it out of any love for Jason Whittingham. So it does look like an administrator will be appointed. That gives me one concern: who's going to fund the administration? Because the board of directors are volunteers, so they don't have the money to do it. Could it be that Punjab Warriors are confident that they will be the best bidders for the club, and therefore they might be in a position to provide the funding? Could we have a situation where the administrators have already been sounded out, and we can come up with not necessarily a pre-pack deal, but a very, very quick deal, given the amount of progress that Punjab Warriors have made historically, and there's not a long list of people, it would appear, wanting to buy Morecambe FC. And all of this happening on the very same day as probably Morecambe's most famous current resident, and this is completely independent, but I thought I'd mention it anyway. Tyson Fury Limited, its accounts came out yesterday, and it's got £180 million in the bank. Now, that's because he's the world champion and he deserves every penny that he's got, because I wouldn't get into a ring with somebody to bluff. So, the two most significant sporting institutions connected with Morecambe, which is Tyson Fury, world champion boxer, and Morecambe FC, to see them at being at the opposite ends of financial success and failure is something which is sad to see.
I'd get in a ring with Tyson Fury. Somebody's got to carry his stool, haven't they?
That's true. Yeah.
What I don't understand about this, Kieran, and what's making me angry about this, is that, as you say, we don't know the details. We don't know what's going on between Ratcliffe and Punjab Warriors. But it just seemed to me, for all parties concerned, the Punjab Warriors bid was clearly a credible one. it just he gets out of it without sending another club into oblivion. Morecambe get some high-profile buyers that will give them a bit of PR around the world, and their fans get the satisfaction of knowing the club. So I just can't understand what his logic would be in not snapping the hand off Punjab Warriors here, unless again it comes back to what it just comes back to the ego of these bloody people.
Yeah.
It's just, that's not good. There should be, if we get an independent regulator, there needs to be an ego clause in there. There needs to be an Uncle Terry who gets sent round to these people and says, "Fuck your ego." You're playing games with people's passion. It's just,
but they don't see it. They don't see it like that.
Of course, they don't.
And there's that nickel and dime mentality of, I appreciate you're a Monty Python fan, but the Mr. Creosote sketch. Just one wafer thin mint of extra money I'm going to extract from you. And people just go, hold on, we've had 6. I'm aware of Spurs and their naming rights for the stadium. From my understanding, the people that were willing or keen on digging a deal, it was, we think we've agreed a deal. Oh, you've just gone and changed. You shall move the goalposts again. And it's that constant frustration. There is a danger that Punjab Warriors will say, okay, so I sold this for a game of soldiers, we're off.
Yeah. Now, we're not a cynical pod, Kieran, luckily, because if we were, we might suggest that this next story involving Aston Villa and their women's team may be related to a very recent vote the Premier League took to allow this sort of thing to happen, Kieran. But we're not, so we won't. But if you could talk us through the mini Chelsea that we seem to be seeing at Villa Park.
Yes, I think this was first reported by David Ornstein, who again, very highly respected journalist at The Athletic and elsewhere, that V Sports, which is the company owned by Edens and Sawiris, the two owners of Aston Villa Football Club, has agreed to buy the women's team. Now, if you take a look at the accounts of the women's team, it has no property assets. It doesn't appear to own a stadium. It doesn't appear to have any long-term assets. So it doesn't even own computers or lawnmowers for the ground. The only assets that it has is cash. And the thing about cash, I'm pretty certain that £10 is never worth more than £10. £10 note is a tenner. And the other asset that it's got is debtors. It's owed money from somebody. Again, if somebody owes me £100,000, they owe me £100,000. So it's got assets of around about 500,000. It is losing money on a week by week basis. It's only about £7,000 a week. I say only. It's still £7,000 a week. And that the Aston Villa women's team has been sold for the fee that I've seen quoted is around about £55 million. Which, in that case, if I was Jason Whittingham, if I was Dejan Chansiri, I'd say, well, hold on, my football club must be worth considerably more than I'm being offered. So that's sorry. I was just looking at a message coming through from a Morecambe fan, just to see if anything was updated, but it's not. So that deal, assuming, will go through on the 30th of June. I believe there's going to be some property sales. Again, we say this is a mini Chelsea. And what did Chelsea do? They sold real estate to another part of the empire, booked a profit, and that allowed the club to comply with the rules. Okay, nothing to see here. Move on. Premier League owners believe that such transactions are representative of the ethics and morality of their rules, which are described as profitability and sustainability rules, and therefore transferring something to yourself and making a profit on that, paper profit, not cash profit, is an example of profitability and sustainability, and we've got nothing to see here. And then they wonder why there is criticism of the governance of the Premier League, why there is a groundswell of opinion that we need an independent football regulator. and that's the thing. That they just don't get it. They get, well, actually, this really doesn't look very clever. Why are we allowing this? It's because club owners, short-term self-interest, will do what's best for Aston Villa. And I've got a lot of sympathy with Aston Villa because when they did try to persuade other clubs in the Premier League, ironically, to increase the PSR limits because they've not gone up with inflation, and other clubs because it was in their interest to keep that limit lower because they don't want the competition from Aston Villa or Newcastle or Forest, and other aspirational clubs. They were voted down.
I always get slightly worried when you go quiet, Kieran, and then there's a little frown on your face and you check your phone. I think, oh, someone's in trouble. Just to clarify here, though, Aston Villa are selling the women's team to a third party or within their own group?
To V Sports. It is part of Sawiris and Eden's Empire.
Okay. And also, every now and again, I mean, Paddy Power's weekly videos are always worth a look, but the one they did about Chelsea yesterday was hilarious.
Yes.
The one about they won't rest until they've signed every single football player in the world, mainly because they need staff for the hotel. As you can imagine, Kieran, like a lot of Palace fans, I'm not a massive fan of the multi-club organisation concept at the moment, but it seems that Newcastle United's owners are not of the same mind.
Yes, so this is the PIF, Public Investment Fund. Ironically, they're already part of an MCO in the sense that they own 4 clubs in the Saudi Pro League.
Yeah.
And there's been some interesting articles, especially following Al Hilal beating Manchester City.
Yeah. Well,
that are we not giving enough? I think we do give respect. It's just that if you've got an individual league where players are allocated by effectively a governor of football, similar to what we see in the NFL, in terms of having one person in charge, that's unfamiliar with our experience of football. But it does look as if PIF are looking to broaden the base beyond Newcastle United and Saudi Arabia itself. One of those opportunities they've been looking for is in Scandinavia. And again, when we've had conversations with some of the sort of, I would say, talent spotting agencies, but the algorithm kids who are picking up millions and millions of data points about players, one of the things which is consistently coming through is that Scandinavian talent is greater than you would expect it to be, given the status of the leagues within UEFA. So it's seen as a source of very gifted footballers. Erling Haaland, of course, is a prime example. And therefore, the logic of having a Scandinavian base makes sense. Here I'm going to apply a bit of COD geography. And you go, it's not too far from Newcastle either.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, ish. But the other place, which is a bit further from Newcastle, is the United States and MLS. And the reason why they're potentially interested in the MLS franchise is Gianni Infantino. Sergio. I mean, why he's never been mentioned in terms of a knighthood for services to football. He will be. It is beyond me. But he says within, I think, 4 or 5 years, soccer is going to be the number one sport in the United States, which is a bullish prediction. But if you want to get into MLS, then you have to pay either a franchise expansion fee, which is going to cost you £400 million to join, $400 million to join the franchise, or alternatively take over an existing club. And the prices we're seeing being quoted for MLS franchises are in excess of $1 billion. Why is it so high? It's because you do have a wage cap. They do tend to be more profitable than clubs in Europe because they are run as a fiscal entity first and a sporting entity second.
A couple of things. I mean, the other thing with Scandinavian players, of course, is that they're very, very likely to speak English, which is a bonus. And they're very, very likely to be paid about 35 quid a week at their current clubs. So Newcastle, 100 quid a week? I'll move there, thank you very much. Secondly, in purely football terms, Kieran, I have to say, watching Fluminense beat Inter Milan, very good game, played very well. I saw bits of the Al Hilal Man City game, and again, Al Hilal, I think, deserved to win it. My only concern was just imagine how sexually aroused Infantino must have been when one of the Saudi Arabian clubs beat a European club. He'd have been cock of the north, wouldn't he? In any other hemisphere that he would want it to be in particular. It's all about Saudi winning the World Cup in 2034, Kieran. I've been reading the WhatsApp groups. I'm buying into conspiracy theories now. I used to hate them till last week. I'm believing every single one now. And one of the things that comes up in the Palace WhatsApp conspiracy groups is we're all experts on the French media deal now and how that's affected Lyon's finances. But in Italy, there's media shenanigans is not the right word, Kieran. But there's some. I've used the phrase horse trading already, I think, this pod. I'm going to use it again. Some horse trading going on.
Yes. We have been critical of Barcelona on many an occasion for forward selling of future rights, payday loans, as I prefer to call them. And it looks as if in Italy there's been a lot of criticism of the Italian football authorities in terms of the value of the rights. They're less than half of those of the Premier League. They had to take a cut in their most recent negotiations. Private equity has got its fingers and toes burned in terms of a couple of deals it's had. But it looks as if Serie A is now still thinking of partnering up with private equity. And what this will mean is that there'll be an initial injection of money, which will be split between all of the Serie A clubs. And then private equity will get 20% of future TV deals. And in theory, the boys and girls of private equity, they're savvy negotiators. They'll get a far better price than is presently on offer. I think Italian football's on the up, and the reason why I say that is because I haven't got a clue who's going to win Serie A this year, which I think is fantastic. And the idea of competitive balance and jeopardy is something which, as a legacy fan, I think is wonderful. But I appreciate that view's not necessarily universal. So that's where they're looking at. And you mentioned League One in France. And in terms of that, and I'm indebted here to Ed Mallion again and his team at SportsBiz. Apparently, the French league is going to try to launch its own product, mainly because other broadcasters, we know that DAZN have walked away. It's also managed to quite spectacularly annoy its own Canal Plus. And therefore, I think they say, well, sod you for Game of Soldiers. You've messed us around in the past. So there's not actually a lot of bidders. But there's talk of a product at $14.99 a month, where you will get practically every match. I think 8 out of 9 matches. And for those people involved in the debate domestically, in terms of the use of pirated means of watching the Premier League, if somebody comes up where you can watch practically every Premier League match for $14.99 legitimately and honestly, I think all of these big Daves who are selling the dodgy Fire Sticks, because people don't feel comfortable about doing it, at the same time, again, we've said this so often on the taste, but it comes down to price. And the amount that people are expected to pay to watch football is severe, and therefore it attracts alternatives. But that $14.99 a month, that's half what DAZN were charging in the French league last year. And I think it's partly out of necessity, because they probably looked at various price points and realised that if they're going to persuade the clubs, then they've got to be selling volume to try to claw back those people who are using the pirated alternatives.
Just one quick point back on Serie A, though, Kieran. What they're selling is a future stake in their international rights rather than the domestic rights, aren't they?
That's right.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
But there's also talk. There's also talk about changing the law in Italy, whereas present, a bit like the MMC, the Monopolies and Merger Commission rules that we have here domestically, Sky cannot have all of the packages domestically. That's why TNT are involved. So one has to go to an alternative provider. There's talk about scrapping that rule in Italy. Could that result in pressure here in the UK so that we just have one provider and who effectively becomes a monopoly supplier? I think the government's possibly got one or two other things on its hands at present, but it's everything's up for negotiation.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want, like that dream house or ride, is a great feeling. That's why the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you save when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Talking of Barcelona, Kieran, I mean, all those worried fans at Barcelona who must wake up every morning terrified about the parlous state of their day-to-day finances and when are UEFA going to spot us? Happy days for them. They're going home.
Yes, 10th of August. I think this will be a soft opening. This will be a partial opening of Camp Nou. But the rebuild, it certainly looks spectacular.
Yeah.
It's 105,000 capacity, so I'm not quite sure how much it'll be like. It'll be like watching sensible soccer. Look it up, kids. Look it up, kids.
Wow, Kasdan's sensible soccer. Wow,
what a waste of my youth that was. What a wonderful waste of my youth.
What a bit of dredging up that is. Wow. Oh.
So bring your opera glasses if you are going to attend that. But it's got the third tier. It's going to have a roof as well. Whether that be used for matches or whether that be probably more commonly used for non-footballing events, it is spectacular. And this was simply a smart opportunity which I couldn't resist. We look forward to opening our dual VIP ring. So
you look like you're about to start a lap of honour around the room there, Kieran. Do you know you're a rascal, you know that. As I was supposed to be writing the rest of the day, but Kasdan's sensible soccer is going to be taking up most of my. I'll just have a quick look, shall Ali. Your boy Bloom has finalised his investment in Hearts, Kieran.
Yes, the proposal was accepted. So he now owns 29.9%, which comes under the influence threshold. I believe these are non-voting shares.
Yeah.
But I think it's the opportunity to work with Jamestown Analytics, which excites Tony Bloom. I think it excites Hearts fans in order to disrupt the top two, given the financial gap that exists in Scotland, would be one hell of an achievement. But even so, finishing third and qualifying for Europe on a regular basis, all of a sudden things on the finances of the SPFL, if you're in the Europa League, let's say 3 years out of 4, your finances turn around quite spectacularly.
It's a very insensitive thing to say, Kieran. It's a very insensitive thing to say.
Sorry.
Hibs had a fantastic season last year, so it can only be good for Scottish football if both Edinburgh clubs are able to compete at the highest level, even if they can't, compete with who.
Yes, and that will build up further interest in the game. I think one of the challenges for Scottish football is that the passion, as we know, has always been there. I've been privileged to watch Scotland international matches, and the Tartan Army are a joy to behold. They're wonderful, wonderful guys. I remember myself and the Baroness, we went to see the Republic of Ireland play Scotland in Dublin. And we got on the plane in Manchester. It was 80% Scottish fans. And as you know, Manchester to Dublin, not a particularly long flight. But even in that time, they managed to drink the plane dry. And they were charming, they were knowledgeable, they were fantastic ambassadors for the country.
Well, it's strange, isn't it? As my old dad used to say, God rest his soul, if Scottish people are that tight, who's buying all the drinks? Because they're not getting them for nothing. The rumour mill sprang into action earlier this week, Kieran, when it was announced that Robbie Savage was no longer a director at Macclesfield. And if I was Robbie Savage, I'd be slightly concerned about some of the people who are willing to believe anything about Robbie Savage. But it turned out there was a very grown-up reason for the fact he's no longer a director at Macclesfield. I'm sure he'll still crowbar in his success at Macclesfield last season and every opportunity that he gets on 606. Although you never know, this new role he has may restrict his role on 606.
That's true. Yeah, because in theory, he should
every cloud,
5 o'clock be given a rousing speech.
Yeah.
Perhaps he'll just do it on Sundays.
Yeah.
So yes, something came through my company's house feed, and I do go down quite a few tiers. It's not just the 92 that I monitor. It's not just every Scottish club.
Yeah.
It's also all of the companies owned by professional footballers. I've got a link to those as well. So quite a few of footballers publish their accounts in the last 48 hours. So he resigned, or he was terminated as the director of Macclesfield FC. He's done a fantastic job there. I think he both as front of house and as manager. He's done really well, and I know Robbie. I sometimes used to bump into Robbie when I was living in Cheshire, and I'd be on the same train as him. If I was coming back from a Brighton game, he'd just finished his TNT Sport, so I used to see him on the train. I think the Macclesfield fans had taken to him, and they do feel slightly compromised, slightly betrayed by the fact that he's gone to Forest Green Rovers. He's not a man you associate with vegan pies, but then to be fair, neither was Duncan Ferguson, and he was the manager there. And we've had Dale Vince on this show, a man who's didn't seem to be particularly happy with life. I've not seen him smile very often, but he's good at what he does. So yes, that was a classic case of Company's House. The rumours had started. The Company's House effectively confirming what the football beats were rumbling about.
Not only Duncan Ferguson, Kieran, Troy Deeney. It's not a particularly happy hunting ground for ex-players as manager there, is it?
No. It's a tough job management.
Talking of going down a few tiers, Kieran, I'm afraid to say Widnes Football Club weren't a team I'd ever heard of, and sadly, as goes with the territory on this pod, you only hear of them when it's very, very bad news.
That's right. The Widnes Football Club, and you associate Widnes with a rugby league, and it's also fair to say that the rugby league team is not at the level that it used to be. When I was at university in Manchester in the early 1980s, I lived with two lads from Widnes, so we used to go and watch them play on a regular basis, and it was absolutely brilliant. Sort of, the Andy Gregory days and so on were amazing. But the rugby team isn't as successful. The football club, it's still part of the community. It still provides that hub. It still provides that focal point. It still provides that meeting place for people for Widnes. And sadly, they've had to withdraw the men's team from all competitions. Simply, they don't have the money to carry on. And that's sad for everybody concerned. They weren't making money. It was a community activity, but it is no longer part of the landscape.
Non-league teams shouldn't have to make money, Kieran, should they? They should have to They should have to get by. Basically, when we were kids, the idea of tooting a mitch and making money was also I wouldn't have heard of Widnes if it weren't for Eddie Waring. To be perfectly honest, who's the most incredible cult sport figure you could imagine, and one of the best comedy clubs in South London, and second place over did notice spot, was run by his nephew Andy. Who
was it?
Yeah, so there's all these comedians, mainly middle class, except me and Mark Thomas. Thank you very much. But all these comedians who had never been north of Watford were just incredibly impressed that they were getting paid 10 quid cash by Eddie Waring's nephew. None of them had heard of
Too
him.
right.
Oh, yeah, it's just. And he used to get really cross because he had a posh London accent and couldn't do his uncle's voice. We used to go, just say up and under. Surely you can say up and under in his voice, can't you? One of my favourite stories is coming up at the end of this pod, Kieran. But first, we got two interesting partnership deals from clubs around. So, Preston first.
Hats off to Preston. They got a sponsorship deal with Spud Bros, which I think is a baked potato emporium that was started by, I think it was two brothers or two friends from one van, has gone on to be pretty successful. And it does show that there are alternatives to the industries that we normally associate with clubs. And it's I think it will become a cult classic, I'm sure. In terms of the popularity of the shirt. So fantastic. Well played, Preston.
I'm sure it will. It's just your obsession with musical acts from the 70s and 80s. When I saw the word Spud Bros, I assumed they were a tribute act.
That's good.
I thought that's and this one's even better, Kieran. Bohemians FC.
Yes, I've got a Bohemians FC shirt with Fontaine's DC on the front of it, so there are no changes. And purely by chance, I'm going to see Fontaine's DC this Saturday in Finsbury Park.
Fantastic, man. I love them.
And they are the real deal. Some of the support acts, I think, have become quite high profile recently as well, if I suspect. So they've come up with a deal with two gobby Mancunians, or Manchurians, as my mother always used to prefer to say about. I know I've told this one before, but the baffled look when I went across to Mayo the first time with my small kids to meet my mum, who she proudly told the rest of the village. My son is coming across from Manchester, and he's got two kids, and they're Manchurian children. They weren't expecting sort of two pasty white, because we are from Manchester after all, and somewhat surly offspring rolling up with Manc accents. So, but yes, Bohemians and Oasis. It will sell very, very well. It's sort of done in that sort of Manchester City style blue that you'd associated with City in the mid-90s. The crossover between music and football. Manchester United have got some Stone Roses gear. Of course, we've had the success of Ed with Ipswich in terms of being a sponsor. Fatboy Slim used to sponsor the Albion, even Clydebank and Wet Wet Wet. It It is great. And I've got to be honest, if you like Oasis, these shirts look great.
Yeah. See, half man, half biscuit don't get the credit they deserve. I mean, they were...
That's true.
They were, and... Oh, I've got it out of my head now. Love on the Terraces. The Higsons. Was that? No, it wasn't the Higsons, was it?
That was the Higsons. Yeah,
was it the Higsons?
Charlie Higson, wasn't it?
Yeah, Love on the Terraces. Yeah, which was a crap. Let's stop this now before we end up. It's bad enough we talk about Casden, Sensible Soccer, and Eddie Waring without starting. This is my favourite story of the year, Kieran. Or let alone we talk about unforeseen consequences, Kieran. Yeah. Of various things, and the Club World Cup has had an unforeseen consequence for some of our four-legged friends.
Yes, and this is a serious story, but we're going to do it in classic last story at News at 10 style with the skateboarding otter. The temperatures that players are being asked to compete at in the Club World Cup have been noted that it's not conducive to football. No. But from a security point of view, there is a big security operation, and that's right and proper. We live in challenging times. The sniffer dogs at the FIFA Club World Cup, and speaking as a dog owner, I absolutely applaud what they've done here. That they've been given special Crocs to put on their feet. Because otherwise there's a danger of tarmac melting, and that would be really bad for the paws and so on, and it's not fair on the dogs to protect their feet. So innovators won FIFA for choosing these ludicrous kickoff time 0, but it's good to see that the sniffer dogs are being looked after.
It is good to see they're being looked after, Kieran, but you know sniffer dogs, they're a notoriously gossipy lot. Yeah, once the word croc had been spread amongst the dog community, they would have been happy at all. What sort of croc are we talking about here? Says the sniffer dog community. So yeah, we've all been friends. Also, I hate to say this, Kieran, I know surgeons wear them and nurses wear them and occasionally stage management wear them, but no one looks cool in Crocs. No one looks cool in Crocs. Even Ed, who's the coolest boy I know, even 22-year-old hipsters, as skinny as anything, can't get away with Crocs. Dogs definitely can't get away with Crocs. I mean, the only consolation is that if you are trying to sneak something into the ground that you're not, you're not going to be. You're going to be laughing if you're rumbled by a dog in Crocs. At least you've got a story to tell. Big Owl in E Block when you finally arrested him. What are you in for? It's a dog in Crocs, mate. Oh. Don't forget you can now join our Price of Football Club, where you'll get ad-free listening, bonus episodes, and much, much more. Just go to priceoffootball.com and click on Join the Club to sign up today. If you have a question you'd like answered on our weekly question show, which comes out on Tuesday, then email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. You can follow us on Twitter X, don't forget. You can find us on YouTube. And if you'd like to buy our book, you can find details on that very same website, priceoffootball.com. So we will be back on Tuesday with our questions pod. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, as always, thank you for everybody that gets in contact. We do try to respond to as many as we can. We certainly read everything, and it is appreciated the level of interaction you have. Price of Football Club, we think it's great fun because we enjoy it. And the quizzes and the extra shows, the live interactions are always great. And we can be slightly more indiscreet, even though we probably shouldn't be for those. But there's another way that you can support the Price of Football, and that's to give us a review. It genuinely makes a difference, according to producer Guy. And let's face it, we had our big annual AGM of the Price of Football last week, and producer Guy was saying, we need to get these reviews in. So please just put something down. By all accounts, it doesn't matter what you say. So you could even say you would rather have the show presented by Eddie Waring and Marty Pello of Wet Wet Wet. I don't know where those two. I suspect they've never met.
I can almost guarantee they probably never met. Oh, you never know. There might have been some circumstances. Both got lovely voices, I have to say.
They have.
But also, just for the sake of clarity, Kieran, that 10-minute Zoom chat we had last Friday afternoon, that was our AGM, was it?
That was our AGM.
Was
yes.
it really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Sorry.
It's now been minuted in the books of the Price of Football Limited.
Well, 5 minutes of it was just trying to work out what was on producer guy's wall. So it was just...
Yes, that was true.
Oh, okay. I really didn't realise that was our AGM. Okay. Oh, a bit of a quick catch up. I wondered. Oh, well. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The Price of Football. The Price of Football.